The night the house forgot how to breathe was the night everyone finally understood that wealth could not buy rest. In a mansion so large it swallowed sound, two young girls lay awake in separate beds, staring at ceilings painted with clouds that never moved. Outside, the city glittered like a promise that had been kept for everyone else. Inside, the air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding secrets. The clocks ticked with a cruel patience, marking hours that refused to soften into sleep. It was the kind of night that exposes the quiet truth people hide from daylight, that comfort can coexist with suffering, and that silence can be louder than screams. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of people the world overlooks, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still awake in the dark. The mansion belonged to a man who had built his fortune from nothing and then built walls around his heart to protect it. His daughters, born into abundance, had never known hunger or cold, yet sleep had abandoned them years ago. The elder daughter carried the weight of expectation like a crown that pressed too hard against her temples, her mind racing through futures she was expected to inherit. The younger one, more sensitive and observant, absorbed the unspoken sadness that drifted through the halls like dust. Doctors came and went, prescribing routines and remedies, curtains thicker than night, and machines that hummed promises of rest. Nothing worked. Night after night, the girls lay awake, their thoughts tangling into knots that no lullaby could undo. Downstairs, in a narrow room near the service entrance, lived a woman the family barely noticed. She was called a maid, but the word felt too small for the life she carried within her. She had come from a village where nights were loud with insects and stories, where sleep came easily after honest labor. Poverty had followed her like a shadow, but it had never taken her gentleness. Each evening, after scrubbing marble floors that reflected her tired face, she listened to the house settle. She heard the distant pacing, the restless footsteps of children who could not escape their own thoughts. She felt the ache of it in her chest, a familiar ache she remembered from her own childhood when fear kept her awake and no one came. The household ran on schedules and rules, and compassion was not written into any of them. Servants were expected to remain invisible, efficient, silent. The maid followed those rules faithfully, yet her heart refused to learn indifference. She noticed how the lights in the girls' rooms stayed on until dawn, how breakfast plates returned untouched. She noticed the way the father's shoulders sank lower each morning, his success meaningless against the quiet failure of not being able to soothe his own children. The house was rich in everything except peace, and she felt an unexplainable pull to do something, even if she did not yet know what that something was. The turning point came on a night when the storm outside mirrored the turmoil within. Rain lashed the windows, thunder rolled like distant anger, and the mansion trembled in response. The younger daughter sat upright in bed, heart racing, her breath shallow, the darkness pressing too close. The elder lay awake too, fighting the familiar spiral of thoughts that told her she must be strong, must never break, must carry the weight of a future she did not choose. In the corridor, the maid paused with a basket of freshly folded laundry, her footsteps soft as apology. She heard the uneven breathing, felt the tension vibrating through the walls, and something in her broke open. She did not knock. She did not ask permission. She simply acted, guided by the same instinct that tells a mother to wake when her child cries. She entered quietly, her presence gentle, like a candle brought into a room that had forgotten light. She sat at a distance, not intruding, just being there. She slowed her own breathing, letting calm radiate from her in waves so subtle they felt like coincidence. She began to hum under her breath, a tune older than the mansion, older than money, a melody passed down by women who soothed fears with nothing but patience and warmth. The sound was barely audible, but it reached places medicine could not. It reminded the younger girl of mornings when she felt safe without knowing why. It reminded the elder of a time before expectations hardened her thoughts, when rest came naturally and dreams were not obligations. The storm outside continued, but inside, something shifted. The girl's breathing began to match the rhythm of the hum, their muscles loosening as if remembering how to let go. Sleep did not come all at once. It arrived cautiously, like an animal approaching an outstretched hand. But it came. The maid stayed until she was sure, until the tension had drained from the room and the air felt lighter. She returned to her small quarters, heart pounding, afraid she had crossed an invisible line. She expected reprimand, dismissal, punishment. None came. Morning arrived differently that day. Sunlight spilled through windows that had known only night, and two girls woke with a confusion they had not felt in years. They had slept, truly slept. The father noticed immediately the change so stark it frightened him. He asked questions, demanded answers, and the truth surfaced quietly, carried on the back of a simple kindness that could not be denied. From that night on, everything changed, though not in the dramatic ways wealth often changes things. The maid was asked, not ordered, to continue what she had begun. She adjusted her schedule, sitting nearby each evening, humming, breathing calm into a house that had forgotten how. The girls began to speak, not in words, but in the way their shoulders relaxed, the way laughter returned in small, surprised bursts. Their nights grew longer with rest, their days lighter with possibility. The elder discovered she could be strong without being rigid. The younger learned that safety could exist even in silence. The father watched all of this with a humility that surprised even him. He had conquered markets and rivals, but it was a woman with nothing but empathy who had solved the problem he could not buy his way out of. He began to see the mansion differently, not as a monument to success, but as a place where people lived, felt, and needed one another. He learned the maid's story of losses endured, of kindness given without expectation, of a life shaped by resilience rather than reward. Gratitude grew where authority once stood, and respect replaced distance. The house itself seemed to respond. Hallways felt warmer, meals became shared moments rather than obligations, and laughter echoed where silence once ruled. The girls started sleeping through the night, their dreams no longer haunted by restlessness. They grew kinder, more attentive, carrying forward the lesson they had learned without realizing it. That compassion is a language understood even in the dark. The maid remained humble, never claiming credit, yet her presence became essential, a quiet anchor in a world that had been drifting. Time passed, as it always does, and the story spread beyond the mansion's gates. People spoke of the rich man whose daughters had been healed not by money, but by humanity. They spoke of the maid whose kindness had reached where power could not. The girls grew older, carrying the memory of those nights into futures they would shape with empathy rather than fear. They never forgot the woman who sat in the shadows and taught them how to rest. Just before we reach the end, I have a special request for you. Please comment below with a single word that describes how this story made you feel, or share a moment when kindness changed something in your life. Your words matter more than you know. In the end, the miracle was never sleep itself. It was the reminder that healing often comes from unexpected places, that the poorest hands can carry the richest gifts, and that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can quiet storms that have raged for years. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power you carry simply by being human, please like the video, share it with someone who needs comfort, and stay connected by subscribing. Together, we keep these stories alive, one gentle night at a time.